So let's see what we need to do. All right. So when you want to build an application, right? So we have like um, two segments. One is the client, and one is server. So let's look at what a client and server architecture looks like. So what happens is, let's say you use an application, maybe your Snapchat, right? So what happens is your application is running on your Android or iOS, and Snapchat has like bunch of servers which are deployed across the US or UK or different countries. So when you like upload a snap, so it goes over the internet to the Snapchat servers, and the server responds back with some information which comes back to your client side. So you need to like know how to work on or how to code in both client side and server side. There are a lot of documentation on the client side because Android and iOS there are there are pretty good documentation which you can refer and you can deploy your application. But when it comes to server, we don't have like much of documentation because there are different server options and there are a lot of whole new ways you can deploy a server. So I'm going to talk about like how you can deploy a server and how you can run an application so that we can build a code on client side and we can establish a communication. So if you like have a interesting idea for a cell phone, you can probably use this as a skeleton application and then you can build upon it. So it could be helpful for you guys. All right, so we have two options to go about. So either we could use an AWS server, that is an Amazon Web Server. I usually prefer Amazon Web Server because it's much more stable and it's like it's pretty easy to use, so it shouldn't be much harder to use. All right, so you're gonna like create an account and then sign up. I think they'll ask for a credit card details, but don't worry about it because they don't recharge. Because I think it's free for almost 1 year, and then you can always delete your instance before they can charge your credit card. All right, so only two options we have, so you better go with the cheapest option, right? All right, so when you're on the home page, you can like launch an instance. So make sure you click on compute, and then you have an EC2 option. That's the server option. And then you can click on launch instance and then look for a free tier Ubuntu server. So once you have that, you can go to configure. Just like like you can leave the all options default. I mean, we don't really need to change anything. So go to the next option and then create on a key value pair. I'm just gonna call a key value pair for maybe I can just call it as okay. Let's just call code something. I'm gonna call it as 2, and then the value I'm gonna call it as CDS 2. I had deployed a bunch of new servers before, so you can like give whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so this is very important because so what happens is so we're gonna once we deploy a server, we need to like enable like few communication protocols. One is the SSH protocol in which you can actually connect to your server. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna enable all the communications to the server. That's gonna be all traffic which are enabled to this port range, and you can make connection from anywhere you want. Now like you can always come back and change settings, so there's no restrictions. I'm gonna do it now because I just want to make sure it's much easier to deploy, and then you can start using it. But typically you should enable like an HTTP, HTTPS, I think like MySQL, and yeah, like all like whatever you want, you can enable those protocols. All right, so review and launch. Click on launch. So this is very important part. So what happens is you're gonna create a new key value pair. This is gonna create a .pem file. So it's sort of like a security file or a certificate file which you're going to use to make connection to a server. So if you lose this PEM file, there's like no way you can make communication, and then there's like no way you can retrieve a server back. So make sure you store these files in a secure location. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna just call it as CDS underscore test. All right, I'm gonna download this file and I'm gonna save it under cd underscore something. Oh, I see, like I have like a, okay, I do have a different file underneath. I'll probably go back and delete it. So I'm gonna just call it as cds underscore test underscore in my directory. So I'm gonna save it. All right, and then I'm gonna launch the instance. All right, so if I log in back, or if I click on services and then compute EC2, and then if I click on my instances, I can see that the new server is being deployed. So at the moment it's initializing, so it's going to take some time for them to deploy it. So meanwhile, I can go to my terminal. So this is the file we downloaded. So this is what we're going to use to make connection to our server. So typically what I do is I'm going to create a new shell script so I can just connect to my server anytime I want. To do that, okay, I'm going to remove my old shell script and I'm going to make a new shell script. So I'm going to say vim connect.sh. Again, like you can like use whichever editor you want. I usually go with the vim because I'm more comfortable with that, but if you want to use a GUI based editor, that's also fine. All right, I'm gonna paste this command. This is the command I'm gonna use to make connection. It's a simple script which makes the use of the PEM file. I think the CDS underscore test was a PEM file, and then it's gonna have a name for a server with the access, either it's root or Ubuntu, whichever you want to give that. It's up to you. Okay, so when I click on this, you're gonna get the public DNS name. Just copy this DNS name and then come back and then paste it here. Okay, as such, connect as such. Okay, cool. So once you deploy it, if you run the script, it should ask for a new fingerprint. You just say yes, and then it should be able to connect to your server. All right, so we are in. So that's your server running there. Now, typically there are a bunch of new things you're supposed to run on the system. I'm gonna run the basic command of sudo apt-get update, which is gonna make sure it's all updated with the latest binaries. Sudo apt-get update. So since there's an Ubuntu system, this command should basically set up the server to the latest binaries. All right, it's all set up. There are a few things I'm supposed to run on this thing. So the first thing I'm gonna do is set up a LAMP server. So typically what happens is when you want to deploy a server, we have different options. So I'm going to typically go with the Python web server, but it's a good habit to make sure you have all the environment required for it to run across. So LAMP server stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So there's a good documentation from DigitalOcean. I'm just going to refer it for setting it up. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is set up an Apache server. So copy this command sudo apt-get install Apache 2 and then run it on your server. Just say yes and keep going. Alright, I think once it's done, you can come back to this thing. The next thing I do is set up a MySQL server, and I'm probably gonna make a detailed video on databases. Like, well, we have two different options. One is the MySQL, which is a SQL-based server, and we have like a MongoDB, or which is basically a NoSQL server. I personally prefer NoSQL because it's expandable database, which means it's very flexible. Mm, yeah, I'm gonna make a detailed video on that. Don't worry about it at the moment. Just copy this command and then paste it and run it. Yeah, it's gonna ask for a password, which is gonna be your database password. Just pick whichever you want. All right. The next command we're gonna run is the PHP command. This is gonna set up your PHP command. That's sudo apt-get install PHP libapache2 mod php5 encrypt. Alright, so once it's all done, you can cd to var www html. So here you should file an index.html file, which is like public file. So remove this file because it has like all the information you need for the server. It's a safe option to like not remove it. I'm gonna just use sudo rm index.html. I'm gonna make a new index.html file. Right, and then I'm gonna say something like, hello world. So whatever you put the contents here is publicly visible. That means anyone with an IP address for a server can actually see it on their browsers. So you can probably post your personal resumes or your personal websites or your actual application on the servers. So in the next videos, I'm going to talk about like how you can actually write scripts where a cell phone can communicate to the server and respond back. Alright, so just save this file. Oh geez, I should have used the permissions. Never mind, I'm just gonna copy this thing and then I'm gonna quit it. I'm gonna use the permission sudo vim index.html and then paste the hello world and then save it. Alright, so now if you go back, okay, make sure you remember this IP address because that's your public IP address. Copy this IP and then paste in any browser. There you go, you see your first website running on a server. Hello world. Okay, so we also need to look into the MongoDB database. I'm gonna talk in detail about MongoDB setup and how we can use it. It's a NoSQL database. So yeah, I think like my plan is I'll make a video on database and then unit test files, which is basically a bunch of Python files which you can use to make a communication gap, which you can basically use to bridge the communication gap between your cell phone and your database, which means that whenever your cell phone makes a connection to a server, the server has like a bunch of files which are basically Python files in my case. So I'm going to use this Python files as a bridging files. I'm going to use those files to make communication to the database, and we also do some processing, maybe like database entry or retrieval, or maybe image processing. I'll think about what I'm supposed to do there, and then respond back to the cell phone. So that's my overall idea for these segments. Yeah. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions regarding deploying a server. Make sure you put comments on the section. Also, please do subscribe. So I'm gonna put more videos um, related to the contents. I'm gonna create like more videos on computer vision. I'm gonna teach you guys how to deploy OpenCV on your system, and you can like do image processing, and also like more on mathematical part of machine learning, like linear regression or neural networks, like how the math part works and how we can actually deploy an actual code so you can understand the concepts behind it. So that's my whole plan for the next upcoming videos. All right, thanks for watching. See you guys.